Hi there. Welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation, and I'm along here. I'm here with, of course.
One of them days we're going through. I'm Bonnie Snyder. I'm your co-host.
That you are. Oh,
yeah,
man.
oh my gosh.
It started from the very beginning. Again, welcome. It's been a crazy day for everybody right now, but there's just so much going on. I was speaking at 7:30 this morning down in Seminole and racing back up here and another thing in between. But we're glad that you're here to join us. We're on a roll with our guests who we're going to introduce this week's guest here in just a moment. But of course, we want to always thank WeBeam TV and John and Rob, and actually only Rob and Dylan are here today, so they get the thank you.
They do get the thank you today, but
John, but John, you guess still got.
We can't forget the boss.
Yeah, I guess we can't. So
we can, but would he appreciate that?
No.
So
there goes another noise. So, anyways,
our studio
thanks.
sounds.
Yeah. Do you want to do
our sponsors and all that good stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, this is okay.
We'll get you. Hey, you're gonna have to carry my.
I am gonna have to.
I don't know anything about our guests.
Well, okay. Well, before we get started, like Tammy said, we want to thank. We always thank our producer, for giving us this platform. We also want to thank you guys, our viewers, who tune into us, every week, and listen to, whatever we're bringing for the week. We also have the ways that you can support the show. We have our kindness page, and with that, you can donate, any amount that you feel comfortable. There are some preset amounts that you can use. So $5, or if you want to sponsor us for the year and give $25,000, we will gladly take it. But every little bit helps. We also have our T-shirts, which Tammy's wearing. Our latest design, or the last of our, I shouldn't say the last of our designs, but our most recent design. That's what I'm talking about. And both designs come both the men's crew neck and the ladies' V-neck. You can order those through the foundation. If you're local, you can come pick them up, or we will get them out to you. There's a lot of ways that you can support us in the show, and we really appreciate it.
That we do.
We also have, remember, our corporate sponsor. It's a hotel. My brain just lived.
Okay, I'll do that. The Hilton Garden in Tampa. It's at the Suncoast Parkway in 54. Actually, at that hotel, a lot of pieces of our Art for Hope is on display there. So you can go there pretty much any time and take a look at the art. There's I've put little cards next to each one, and it has a QR code that'll take you back to the web page. I don't have all the images on there, but if there's anything there that you see that you like, just contact the foundation, and we'll get it to you.
Yes, we will.
We will get it to you.
Well, I have that first piece hanging in my living room as we speak.
Well, and we have another piece coming in, and I hope probably in the next couple of shows, I'll be bringing it in. A guy that I went to school with did this really cool turtle piece, and it's like a sublimation on aluminum or something. The pictures look really cool, so I can't wait to have it in my hands here shortly. So that'll be another piece that'll be available.
That's nautical. So, all right.
We might have to fight over that one. I have to get him to send me more. So that'll be it. So I think we've got mostly everything covered. I don't have my notes. I don't have my papers.
Today is going to be, I don't want to call it a wing it kind of day. Like I said, both Tammy and I have been going like nonstop all day, and we both walk in the studio and it's like, forgot our notes. But, as we said, this is a completely unscripted show, and so you never know what you're going to get, with us. But again, we are so appreciative to you guys tuning in. And so, without like further delay, I want to get into introducing the guests that we have on today. to bring another perspective to, this epidemic of suicide and how it affects, different populations. As you guys know, last week we did a tribute show I knew him as Sid Savage. His real name was Carl. And we had his memorial service this weekend, this past weekend. And, it was a beautiful, beautiful service. That was very fitting to him, lots of tears and, people sharing stories, about him. And, I was honored to, to share, being one of the last people that was able to be on stage with him. An amazing young man. But while I was there, I met our guest, Larissa Castillo, who, we were chatting afterwards, and she had indicated to me that Jess, Carl's wife, his widow now, unfortunately, had, that's Jess and Sid in costume, by the way.
That's not Sid, but
Jess.
that is Jess.
It looks, when I looked at that, I'm sorry, I thought that was Sid. I was like, that looks so much, Sid has a clone. But that was Jess.
Yes.
Okay, so that was Jess, Sid's widow. But anyway, we started talking about, I don't want to steal Laritza's thunder, let her explain, how suicide affects people from the entertainment, and the performing community. And so I want to introduce Larissa Castillo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I don't want to mispronounce her website is Elephant.
Alien font?
Alien Font.
Yeah, it's a hybrid of alien and elephant put together.
Gotcha.
I figured that one out.
Well, it looks like it's alien. And I'm looking. I said it right this morning, and I'm like, got it wrong now. But again, Larissa, welcome to the show, and thank you for grabbing a hold of me on Saturday and saying, hey, let's chat, and agreeing on such short notice to come and be in studio with us today. So, if you could tell our audience what is Alien Font. And then, we'll get into how, why, you felt that it was important to, use this platform to talk about how this epidemic affects.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I was watching you guys, and now I'm here, and I'm like a little fangirl.
We got fans now.
Yeah. So, well, I appreciate so much what you ladies are doing. You've been through such troubling times, and then to take that and be like, I'm going to advocate for other people and help lift up people who've been in this situation. That's so admirable. So thank you for having this platform for people to speak. So thank you. I'm a fashion designer, and one of my key things when I design is I believe that fashion can be used for healing. And there's many times where I have used fashion for healing, and people have come to me and told me how it has healed them. So it's very personal to me, and I always feel like just the healing process is important, however it can come. And so that's kind of why I'm here, because yes, I do fashion, but if I have a voice that I can use, then I'm going to use it. And thank you for having the platform. So that's why I'm here. And also, one of my backgrounds is I'm a professional seamstress, and I get on calls for rotating concerts that come through town, through the Tampa Bay area or the Orlando area. And so I'm behind the scenes for those big tours, and I'm talking to the crew members that help put this set together, the wardrobe people who help put the clothing together for the performers. And so that's where my perspective comes into play in the conversation, is I'm hearing those conversations, and that's the world that's the perspective in the world that I come from. Yeah.
So when I think about Saturday and that that service for Sid, Carl's
Yeah,
we're gonna we go back and forth, like I said, Carl was the person, Sid was the persona.
Yeah.
But what I was struck by is the conversation that you and I had, and where you talked about how suicide affected, your industry. And in it, you made a comment about, the circus. I don't know if you remember that that piece of the conversation. I may prompt you a little bit.
Yeah,
'cause I don't wanna-
we talked. There was a lot of conversations going on. So.
Because when you looked at Sid, you thought his makeup was clown. It was like a clown, it was like a clown persona. But it was much more than that. And the comment you made about people running away to join the circus.
Yes.
And
yes.
you
I
had
remember
that.
now.
Okay, so you can share that one.
What I was saying is, traditionally people ran away to the circus because they were running away from something, maybe a bad life situation, or maybe they just had nothing else for them, so they would run away to the circus. And so the circus became a family of its own for people, and that's why I have to tell a little story. That's why Jess's funeral or memorial service was called Showman's Rest, is because in the circus. Because usually it would be like, oh, when you pass away, you go back to your hometown. Well, a lot of these people didn't have that option, so they created this Showman's Rest so that circus performers and different performers had a place to call their own, to come together as a community and be like, this is our resting place. I thought that was beautiful, and it was perfect for him. Everything was gorgeous. They honored him so well, and I tried to do my part. You saw, so I dressed up as well that night. I had my clown makeup on, and I had my circus stripes and everything, because it was a way to use fashion as a way to heal, as a way to honor someone's life. So.
And you hit a nail on the head. For me, is. You had to be there, like, to describe, how Jess put this service together would not do it justice. You had to be there, but it was this, huge tent, and you had, and Rob, showed it a minute ago, but it had, Sid's jacket and some pictures of him and whatnot. But there was like a popcorn machine. That was at the front of the tent. That were just depictions of Sid and his life. That was going into the tent. So again, what I liked about the quote on the placard as you were walking in, or the thing, what is it? The noblest thing in life that you can do in life is make someone happy. And when you said people running away to the circus, it was like, we don't think about when we look at the clowns and circus and that atmosphere, we think that everybody's happy, like nothing affects them. But you hit some nails on the head for me, or brought some things to the forefront in our conversation. So can you share with us, like any personal experiences you've had, whether personal or in the industry, that you're comfortable sharing?
Sure. Well, first I wanted to talk about back to what we were talking about, which is the performance industry is incredibly demanding. Like a little snippet from behind the scenes. I don't know if I can say this performer's name, but she's one of the hardest working women in the industry. And here I am, I clock in, I take care of the wardrobe, I do whatever alterations you need. She goes on stage, performs. Afterwards, I'm going home, she's not. She's cleaned up all the sweat that she just finished sweating off, and now she's going to do a meet and greet for somebody else. So her exhaustion and everything that she might be going through personally, is she has to suck it up and keep working and keep putting on that face. And this is city after city after city after city. So that's the face that you see a lot, but there's so much, struggling, like turmoil that goes on behind the scenes of this industry. And what people also don't understand is that this industry, because it's so demanding and because you're so much on the road all the time, you're not might not be able to get the mental help that you need while you're on the road. I think that my industry needs to kind of reevaluate themselves to allow that for a lot of the people that are working for them, the performers included. They just need downtime. Everybody needs that time, and you know what? Nobody knows what you're going through. If you're on stage, you're dancing, you're a clown, you have a smile, that's wonderful, but nobody knows what's going on behind the scenes. And we really need to allow some time and space for them to kind of just like, hey, this is my life, what's going on? I need to kind of deal with this too. So I really, and saying it out loud, I realize that, yeah, it is demanding in my industry, and there is not something like that. I know that there are some health cares that are coming out for people who are on the road all the time, because if you're on tour constantly, you don't have your primary care doctor that's easily to call, book an appointment. You might be in another country, or you might be like, there's so many different circumstances, but in the States we kind of need to look at that. And then during the shutdown, one of the things that affected Carl as well, Sid, was he's a performer who couldn't perform. And that's their not only their livelihood, but it is their livelihood. It is what keeps them going. And for a lot of these performers, it's not, yes, they make money for it, but it's their passion.
Yeah.
That's what. It's not an easy industry to get into. So if you're in it, there's a heartbeat for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the things that we were looking at specifically was. Because there were so many things on top of so many things on top of so many things for him, but one of those was that there was a lack of being able to perform for people. So I guess my quick message to everybody is, if you have a performer friend, check in on them, call them, see how they're doing. Do you want to come over to my house and do a little show or anything? Reach out, anything that you can. And there's so many different facets to this industry. There's hair, there's makeup. For me, I'm the fashion stylist, wardrobe. There's so many different facets of this industry that you can reach out to your friends and see how you can help them out.
So it's
them a
not
talk.
just limited to the performer.
Yeah.
Would it be safe to say that the pressures are not just on, because I want to in a minute go back to something you just said that struck with me. Something that Tammy and I talked about during the COVID shutdown, and how different people were affected.
Yeah.
Something just had sparked with me. Like I said, I'll come back to it in a sec. But this checking in on a friend. How would you characterize the difference between the pressures that, say, the performers are under as that person that we see in the spotlight, and those of you all that are behind the scenes making that performer look good? Like,
Yeah.
is the pressure any different for you than it is for them?
I think everybody's, process of taking the show on is different, but I mean, there's definitely a lot of pressure put on the person that's paying the big check, but backstage, there is pressure, and I think one of the things that people during the shutdown specifically for us was, like we were saying, we're freelancers, and some of us don't qualify for that unemployment. And so that's really difficult, and that puts you under pressure when you are that backstage crew, when you're the helping hands and whatnot. And those are the other people that I wanted to mention, is that there's tons of people who are backstage, like putting that stage together, the riggers and the lighting crew and everybody like that. Wow. And they're under a lot of pressure too, because they have, there's safety issues that they have to make sure are met.
Things have to be right.
Yes.
There cannot be any mistakes.
And you have a time limit.
Right.
But these crews are amazing. They're really well put together. They're really ironed all of that out before they hit the road. It's impressive. It's really impressive how fast they can put a stage together and break it down. But everybody goes through something, and you never know what they're like, what's going on with them. So just as important as the person that is the spotlight on stage, please check up on everybody who's helping them be able to have that spotlight. It takes a small city, a small village, to put on a show. And I think that's also one of the pressures you might feel like if you're a single performer like Carl, you are the show. You know, you don't have like the gaffers and the lighting equipment crew and everything. It's all on you. It's everything's on you. And so sometimes the added pressure of that being the leader of your own show can be a lot of pressure too. Because when you have management, it's easy, just go, we'll take care of it. But when you're putting it on yourself and you're taking all that, yeah, I could see how that could amount to a lot of stress and pressure for sure.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I remember, if I think back to the very last show that he did, which, like I said, I was honored to be at that show. And, as I'm listening to you talk about, you're a performer, you're in front of the stage, you're, putting on the show for people, and then all of a sudden, here comes the pandemic, and you stop performing. And, as I look back and I'm thinking, that must have been his coping, like a coping mechanism for him to be able to, that was at the show. I was like...
That's a great makeup.
And what was funny is, as we were taking this picture, I mean, he's got this scowl, but that was his stage persona. But what people don't know is, as we were taking that picture, he was laughing. We're like chit-chatting back and forth. It was really... like I said, it was funny because, as I'm talking to him and getting to know him as a person, I was like, I really love this. During the memorial, as I was speaking, I remember I got, to the venue and I'm watching, this Carl was small in stature. He wasn't like, he wasn't a big guy. And I'm just watching him walk around and I was like, who is this guy? And he goes in the back and he comes in and he had on his costume. There were, the mismatched striped socks, they're rolled up, and I think he had, these suspenders on. And I was like, okay, I wonder if, it's like, oh, there he is. And, he did not have his, I call it his war paint, like he didn't have the war paint on yet. And I was thinking to myself, wow, he was attractive. I mean, Sid was very attractive. And then he comes in and he's got the war paint on and he's doing, these facial expressions, and I'm just cracking up. And, as I'm watching this, to your point, Laritza, if I would have known that, 2 weeks after that show, he would be gone, and he would be gone at his own hands. I was, no way. And I think for a lot of us that, didn't know him as long as, say, other people, I think I said I was in my garage, and Greg, we did No Label. I think we've gone to labels now. But Greg, who, performed at that show with Sid, came out in the garage, and I think I said this last week, and said, Eddie, who was the host of the show, I've got some bad news. Eddie just called and said, Sid's not with us anymore. And I'm looking, I was like, what do you mean he's not with us anymore? And, he told me what happened, and you go into this fog, like, did I just hear that right? Did I just, and then of course, following up with you.
Yeah, I mean, I boohooed this morning about him. It's still so fresh, and I know it's going to be one of those things that every now and then it just.
Yeah, and you don't know when it's going to hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something will come up and. Yeah, it's still so fresh and raw.
It is, and what's funny is when we did the every year there's an Out of Darkness walk, which is a walk that is for lost survivors, or people who are either walking for someone that they lost, or they're walking for themselves because they were fortunate to have survived an attempt. Or they're walking in support of the cause, and as you saw at the memorial, I had all the beads on, and they have like a specific color bead for how suicide has, touched you. And as I'm sitting back and I'm like, okay, I need this bead, I need this one, I need this one, I need this one. And I was struck how there was probably only one bead color that I couldn't pick up, that was not applicable to me. As I have not lost a parent, to suicide. But, it's like, I lost a friend. We shared a military, so I've lost, military friends. I've lost, my grandson, and then, of course, we're back and forth on, was Patrick,
Right.
an accident or not. And then there was, the one that you have to, if you are supporting the cause. And then, the other one, if you are yourself in that personal struggle, because, we've shared, here a couple of attempts myself, just, military stuff. And, but I was struck where there's only one color that I could not pick up. And, it resonated with me because as I've got all these beads on, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to run from this event. I'm going to go home and take, change clothes, grab a quick bite, and, drive over. It's like an hour and 20 minutes to get from where I live to where, Sid's memorial was. And anyway, while we were at the walk, Greg was helping me, with the walk, and I mean, he won't. He might get upset. No, he won't. He's fine.
You say that every time you talk about
I know. Every time I talk about him, he'll be all right. He likes me. So.
He's a good guy.
He is. He's an awesome guy. I tell people, you met, Greg.
Is he the one that was with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
The mentalist that was on show.
Yes.
Because
He said some really touching things too. What he said that stood out for me, and it's so key, is that he only knew him for a short amount of time, but the impact was incredibly strong with him. And that's also another thing that we should probably address, is that you can make really impactful friends in a very short amount of time. And I know a lot of people sit around and they're thinking that, I don't have any friends, there's nobody that I can connect with. But anything's possible. You can make a very close friend in a very short amount of time. It is possible. It's happened, and Greg and Carl are a perfect example of that. They met so soon, and it's something that it probably is going to radiate for the rest of his life how powerful that friendship was.
It was, because I remember as they were prepping for the show, they were, they do a lot of, behind the scenes too. So it was Greg, Carl. It's funny. It's like, am I disrespecting him by calling him Sid? Because we want people to know his name was Carl. And like I said, Sid was his stage name. His name was Carl.
Yeah, I think it's because I know him by Carl first.
See, and I knew him as
the
Sid
performer first.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So that's
because what was funny is, I want to say he sent me the friends request, and so because the friends request came in as Carl, and he pronounced his last name Skeens, is it? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this like, who? And then I looked at the picture and I was like, oh, that's Sid. So anyway, so I was like, oh, so Sid is not his real name. I'm thinking all along, that was his given, but then I had to think about it. Well, Greg performs under, his last name, Raven, is a pseudonym. It's not his, given last name. But anyway, so I'm, like Greg would call me, I'm meeting up with, Eddie and Sharon and Sid, to get prepped for the show. And I was like, oh my God, I can't wait, to do this performance. To your point, it was an instant connection. But I remember at the Out of the Darkness walk, and mind you, I've known Greg for 10 years. We've only been doing this thing, this relationship, going from a friendship relationship to a relationship. July, I think it's August, July, something
Oh,
like
it's
that.
fresh.
It's a fresh. Yeah, the friendship is not fresh. The relationship is fresher. But in that whole time, I'd never seen Greg cry before. And we're sitting at the table. He's such a good boyfriend. I said it. I said the word. I said the word.
Congratulations.
Not say
I
that.
jokingly said that. All right, I said it.
Special.
That's too
You know,
funny.
whenever he, because he lives 2 hours away, so whenever he comes up for the weekend, I'm working. He's going to get a kick out of this one. Because I'm telling him I said that BF word on air today. But anyway, so whenever he comes up for the weekend and I have an event, I was like, hey, I've got to work this weekend, and he jumps right in and helps. But anyway, we're setting up, and I happen to look over, and he's sitting in the chair as we're waiting for the walk to start. And I just see his hands go over his eyes, and he's, like this. And at first I thought, is he tired? Is he got a headache? And I'm like, it was, early in the morning. So I'm like, do you need breakfast? Are you hungry? And he's like, no. But, the no that I heard was not like his normal voice. And then it dawned on me, he was sobbing, like he was crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, Greg, what, and he's like, he couldn't respond back to me for a moment. And I'm like, he tells me his parents don't call him. So I said, Gregory. Don't call him Gregory. Call him Gregory. But, I was like, Gregory, what's up? And he said that one more, all I heard him say was, Sid. It's Sid. And I'm thinking to myself, so of course I'm like, I have, we have to keep, I've got to keep on my game face, I'm at work. But then at the same time, it's like, wait a minute, this is a walk for suicide. Mm-hmm. This is a walk to honor, people that we lost. And here we are, like fresh, where
It's probably the first walk that he's been to.
I think it was.
And the suicide of his friend is so fresh.
Well, and to add
reality.
Right, and to add to that, we were doing the walk that morning.
And the
Sid's
funeral
memorial. We don't call it a memorial. We don't call it a funeral. It's it's not a. We don't call.
I didn't say funeral.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard you say funeral.
I said memorial.
But Sid's memorial was that night.
Afternoon. Yeah.
Or
Exactly.
that afternoon. Yeah,
Right.
because we were literally leaving the
Yeah,
walk.
so that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot to emotionally take in and digest.
Yeah. I didn't know that it was that.
That same day,
Same day.
we had worked that I had to do that walk.
I didn't know that you knew, I did not know that you found out that same day.
That the memorial was?
That memorial.
No, we knew about the memorial because
Oh, no,
That
wait.
was the week before. It was the walk was that morning.
I see what you're saying.
the walk was that morning
Oh.
and Sid's memorial was that night because Greg and I were on vacation
Yeah,
the week
yeah.
before. It's like we found out about Sid, and then like a couple of days after that, we left for vacation, and then we got back
You got back that night, didn't you?
I got back the morning before, and so it's like I literally threw our suitcases into my house, unpacked, packed for the walk, and we both looked at each other and was like, wait a minute, the walk is the 13th in the morning. And I just remember looking at Greg and I was like, and what time is Sid's service? It was at 4:00. So, it's like, yeah, we're going to finish this walk at noonish,
And this,
go home, change clothes, possibly grab a bite, and go out to the memorial. It was an emotional day. It was an emotional day.
oh,
So,
That's really
getting back on track of you sent a cartoon to us.
yes.
And there was something about this cartoon that you wanted to share with our audience.
Yes, one of the,
It got
Rob, you got the cartoon, the clip? There it is.
Yeah, this is about the Trevor Project. A lot of trans youth right now are having a lot of difficulty, and they also need some sort of help or outreach. And if you look at this cartoon, it talks about being anonymous, because some of the families these kids are in aren't very supportive, or wherever situation they might find themselves in might not necessarily be supportive and open. So this is a way that if you are struggling and you need some way to reach out, but you need to keep yourself anonymous, this is a way that you can chat with somebody, get the help that you need, and then it has like almost like an emergency tab that you can push on. It will clear your browser history and close the page. So it's just, and it's super sad that it has to come to that point, but it's available. So there it is. So it's like, so if you know anybody who needs help, that they're in such a sheltered family home that they can't reach out, this is one way that they can. And I thought that was super important, because a lot of kids are super computer savvy. Like they're really, really smart when it comes to tech. And so I love that this is a tool for them to their advantage.
I didn't know about that. I know we have which we have included on all of our hotlines. They can also text Jason to 741-741. And that'll get them.
That's excellent.
Help.
Awesome.
Because
yeah.
a lot of the youth are, they'd rather either use the computer or text, and that makes them feel more comfortable to reach out for help.
Yes. It's the tool that they grew up using and knowing. So.
Yeah, for them. Yeah, not for us.
Yeah, for them. Yeah, and so that's something I really wanted to share was, and not only, it's not just for trans youth, this is for trans adults as well. Anybody, if you're in that community and you need somebody to reach out to for any situation, it's available now.
And I think, by having you on and, highlighting another population that, often we may not think of as having a, high rate of, suicide or depression or, or anything else like that. Like, I think prior to Sid, the only other comedian, let's just say, was Robin Williams. And, what I think about is, it's a little different for me in a sense, being, in the field that that I'm in. It's like, as you guys both know, I'm mental health. And so, there is an awareness of, this epidemic of suicide and, why people take their lives and, what mechanisms we can put in place to address it. I want to say it's only maybe of recent that, there's been, for me anyway, a focus on looking at the different instead of looking at it as, like broad, with a broad brush, looking at, okay, so what are the specific dynamics as it relates to this population or this population or this population. Studio sounds. Sounds from our studio.
Turn it off.
So, but
Alarm.
oh, it's okay. It's okay.
It's a pretty sound.
It is. It is.
It was better than.
Thank you.
It was better than when our boss, our producer, was drilling during our show and hearing screech.
He was putting up the wooden, he was putting up the wooden doors that you see that come into the studio. He was.
We've talked about it a lot since he's done that.
It is.
We'll never let it down.
I'll look it up and see which episode it is and say, Larissa, look at this episode and you'll see what we were talking about. Yeah, our set used to be on the other side of where we are now. And so I could see him as he was drilling.
Were you giving him the eye like?
Well, I don't think he realized that we could hear him. And so Tammy and I are doing our thing and you hear zzz, so as the screws are going in and we're looking And, of course, we the show,
Yeah,
the show must go on. And so finally, Tammy's like, "What is it?" I was like, "It's John."
Yeah, she could see him. I couldn't. I could hear him better.
They're like, what the heck?
So I'm like, "Can you see him?" Yep. He's.
Well, at first, I mean, she could hear the sound, but she didn't know who it was, and so I'm like, "So how do you tell the boss? How do you tell the boss to stop the noise?" And so I didn't realize that we could hear it, like it was as audible until I actually saw the show. Actually, I think Greg saw it first, and he was like, "You know that? You can really hear that." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I think you texted me at the same time.
I
It's
texted
like,
you that night.
"Yeah, you could really hear John's." So when it was all over,
You're
he
right.
was
At least
like,
it's pleasant. It's, like,
It's fun.
It is.
Yeah.
yeah, but it is. I mean, that's a nice segue to the show must go on. And
Yeah. You were talking about Robin Williams, and I was thinking because beyond him, like I automatically in my brain is like all the other artists. Linkin Park, Benny, and then Avicii as well. Those are they're performers and entertainers, and they also.
And right around the same time as Robin Williams, there was that fashion designer,
Kate Spade.
Kate Spade.
Anthony Bourdain.
Alexander Wang.
Yeah. But that's when it comes to suicide. That's when you hear about it in that industry. Is the people that are the famous people, not everybody else that is involved and behind the scenes that is still as affected as they are.
And, I think what I saw was like Robin Williams was first, and then to me it seemed like Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain
they
were
were.
like back to
Yeah,
back,
they
like
were.
one right, like if one was on Monday, the other one was on Friday or
Right.
something like that. And I just remember saying, "What is going on?"
Yeah, and then also from my perspective, at the same time, there were a ton of artists that I knew from like the alternative fashion, like all that were in line as well. It was happening.
Yeah.
It seems like that happens. It just around the same time is going on.
So what do you think is needed for your industry? Like what's, I don't want to say what's missing, but we shouldn't say but. What is, like if you had a, we call it, we're talking magic. Like, if you had a magic wand, and you said, if I had this magic wand, I could wave it for my industry, and provide like what was needed, what would that look like?
I think it's an answer that goes to a lot of different genres, but healthcare for all. Mental health care for all would be the magic wand that I would wave for this country, because everyone has a brain and everyone has their own issues and everybody goes through that. And a lot of times people, they think that they don't need to go to therapy because everything's great. And and I think that it is a tool that everybody can benefit from. Because if you aren't getting any kind of feedback from anybody, you think that you kind of need, how can I put this? Therapy's great.
You may have people that you bounce things off of, but that may not be enough.
Yes.
It may not be, I'm not going to say not the right information, but I'm going to go
They're
back
not
to
built for it.
Right.
I understand what you're saying, and I 100% agree, because I've had issues that in my own personal life, that I cannot go to my spouse with. I cannot go to certain people because they don't have the tools to help me. They don't have a toolbox and a toolkit to hear what I'm saying and be like, for what you're going through, this is the tools that you need. They're wonderful and they're loving and supporting and they want to hear me out. But that's kind of where it goes, because beyond that, they don't have the tools. That's where therapy comes in, because they can not only hear you out, they are trained for the tools to help you, and a lot of people do go to their friends and they kind of like rely on their friends for that, and that's beautiful and wonderful if you have that relationship, but you also need to consider the person that you're talking to and ask them if they're in the right space to hear what you're trying to share. Because sometimes, you know, if you have a big bag that you want to unload, that friend that you're trying to unload that bag on might not be able to carry that. You know, so it's always good to ask people where their headspace is when you want to share things. And so that's important with like everybody across the board, I think. And then also when you're that friend that's sitting there and being like, okay, yes, go ahead, share with me. Another important question to ask them is, okay, are you looking for advice or do you want to just vent? Because when you want to just vent, just be the ear,
Right.
you know? Because so many times people think that when somebody vents to them that they're looking for you to provide them a solution, and that's not always the situation. Because sometimes that can be a little off-putting when you go to somebody and go, man, this is how I feel and this is what's going on. And they go, oh, well, you should do this and you should do that and you should do that. And be like, listen, I've heard that. I know what I should do and what I have to do. I just want to express myself. So that's where the are you venting or are you seeking advice is a very pivotal question, and also seeing if the person is ready to hear what you have to say.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I many years ago, when I lost my first husband, my attorney sent me to a sociologist, and it ended up being a total disaster. Total disaster. So after losing Bobby, and actually, today is my first husband's birthday, and tomorrow's Bobby's birthday.
Oh.
But anyway, so
That's Bobby.
yeah, there's Bobby. So I've had a lot of people through the last 5.5 years ask me, you know, have you gone, you know, have you seen anybody? And I have resisted, and finally I did make an appointment. I have an appointment next week.
Oh, that's
good
awesome.
for you.
And it was funny, I was talking to my neighbor, and her and I talk every day. She listens to me, and we kind of joked about it. She says, oh, I wasn't good enough for you. And I was like, you know, I thought that when I thought about telling you. And I'm like, no. And she goes, oh, I was just kidding. I'm like, I know you were. But, I mean, she's been the person that every day,
That's awesome.
from the moment that he died, several times a day, if I just need to get something out.
What an awesome
You know,
friend.
but yeah, I finally bit the bullet, and I have my first appointment next week.
That's great. You might see, you might benefit from the tools, because if I could share one of the tools that I was given,
Go ahead, please.
is when things seem like they're spiraling out of control. You know, when the emotions are welling up, and then the ideas and the thoughts start leading to other things beyond. You know how it is when you're just like, it's a ball, it's an avalanche, it's going. Try and do anything that you can control. And that can be doing dishes, laundry, rearranging your knickknacks, like taking a bathroom. Literally anything that you are in control of. And if it has a ending result that you can visually see and compute, like that's even better. But the reason that helps is because when everything is spiraling out of control, you're doing something that you can control. And that just kind of brings you back into, okay, I got control of this. I can do this. This doesn't rule me. I am in control. So that, it's a small trick, but my God, it helps. Like it really,
Well, I
really
think
does.
it goes back to what we've talked about a lot. Like for me, it's either doing yard work, doing something that he would
Yeah.
normally do.
Oh, yeah, good
You, how many times do you clean your garage?
I'm still working on it.
You know, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and I think we do that not even thinking about it at times, because it has probably become a natural coping mechanism since going through what we're going through.
And you know, I'm kind of sitting here with this just,
No, I'm looking at
you know, I'm just like, you know, sitting here just absorbing what both of you were saying, you know, because, you know, as the mental health professional amongst this trio here, I think it's important to note that one of the barriers to treatment is stigma. You know, because so many people feel like if I'm going to see somebody, I'm going to be seen as broken, I'm going to be seen as
Like there's
defective,
something
I'm going to
wrong.
see as, you know, like you should be able to handle life on your own, why do you need somebody else? You know, and whether it is, you know, from a personal perspective and, you know, of course, you know, I would say also across some cultures, it is, you don't see a therapist, you pray it out or you know,
Which is crazy because, like, if you have a toothache, you go to a dentist. If you have something wrong with going on here, see a professional. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
that is how our society needs to start seeing it.
and you know, what's funny is what you're saying. I was in a focus group meeting, you know, this morning. I was like back-to-back meetings today, and that was one of the very things that, you know, there was several of us, you know, from, you know, the different counties around, you know, Florida. You know, because I was in the Pasco group. There was a Pasco group, a Hillsborough group, a Polk County, and a, let's say, Pasco, Pinellas, Polk, and Hernando. You know, for those of y'all that are not in Florida, those are, you know, the Florida counties, you know,
Like
around
our
where we
Tampa
are.
Bay area.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that got brought up. It's like, okay, if you have a broken arm, you go to the doctor. If you have a broken leg, you go to the doctor. If you have a sniffle, you go to the doctor, and you have that, you know, condition looked at. But for somehow, when there's something going on with your head, there's a reluctance to go see somebody. Now, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't say that therapy doesn't always work for everyone. You know, and I dealt with this with Patrick. It's like, let me get you somebody to talk to. And his pushback to me was always, I don't need anybody, I can talk to you. And I'm like, I'm your mother. I can't be your therapist. But he was, you know, he's very resistant. I can talk to you. I don't need to go to an outsider. And, you know, of course, you know, we're taught in school, you know, that dual relationships. I'm like, okay, at least I can be that ear for him, that,
Yeah.
you know, that sounding board until he was ready to go and see somebody other than me, you know, other than I. You know, being the therapist in the family is that double-edged sword. You know, people want to talk to you, but then, you know, they don't. It's like, guys, I'm not the family therapist. You know, the other thing, you know, when I look at, you know, like from our perspective, we don't give advice. Because for me, the issue is if I give you advice, you follow it, and then say that piece of advice may work for me. If it doesn't work for you, then I've just compounded the problem. So, you know, when I was like, okay, I'm going to give you a piece of advice, but I'm giving you this as my friend, as a friend. This is not my professional hat on right now, if I'm talking to a friend. But then, you know, again, I might say even to that, I am reluctant to do advice for that very reason. All right, let's talk this out. But, you know, again, you know, rewinding, you know, that stigma is that huge part of it, you know, like it took a while for me as someone in the field to acknowledge that I have a therapist now, you know, like, you know, after, you know, Aiden and then, you know, especially, I shouldn't say especially, but after Patrick, those, you know, two back-to-back, you know, deaths of a grandson and a son, I was like, I need to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And I think once we get past the stigma, once we get past, you know, to your point, and you know, God, thank you for saying that. You go to a doctor for everything else. Why aren't you going to a
Yes.
doctor to deal with, you know, whatever stressors?
Well, and the thing is, too, is if you go to somebody and you don't click, find somebody else.
That is true.
Yes.
Don't
Don't give
just
up.
think that just because you and this person don't click, there's somebody out there
Yes.
that is going to work for you.
Yes, and I've had a bad experience with that one time and realized that it was just that person that I was talking to and not the whole like
Right.
session. So I think that's so important that
Yeah,
people
it
need
is.
to
It's very
learn that.
important. And I think, you know, I come out it kind of in a way from my experience years ago. You know, maybe but I was really young at the time, and I was just, that's it, I'm done. I didn't go. And I probably could have gone to my lawyer and say, hey, look, this guy's just not working.
Yeah.
You know, let's find somebody else. But it was one and done.
But, it's also important, for us, as the professionals in the field, that we recognize when a therapeutic relationship is not working, and we're trained to, it's like, okay, we're not clicking. Let me refer you to somebody else. So I have to be able, as the professional in the room, to say, hey, you know what? I may not be the best fit
Right.
for you. But, as we always, we're getting down to, to our last minute. But as we wind this down, and understand that, it is important to reach out. I will never forget, Sid's Facebook page was, I'm in a dark mental health place. What do you do? But we have the hotlines, phone a friend, as Tammy and I always say, put those numbers in your
Put them in your phone.
so they're right there accessible, because you never know
That's a good idea,
when
too.
you might need them. Larissa, we want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and this perspective with us, because I think it is vitally important that we continue to shine a light on this epidemic, and understand that it's not just it is where it's certain segments, it doesn't discriminate. No one is immune. And Tammy and I, we always do this rollout with, always remember,
There's always hope. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks.